the Viet Cong feared no one except these men. In the dense jungles of Vietnam, South Korean soldiers earned a reputation so ruthless that even hardened guerrillas avoided their patrols. And while secret American special forces risked everything behind enemy lines, these warriors changed the course of battles few people even know took place. This is the untold story of the units the Viet Cong didn't dare to fight. Why were Korean soldiers so feared in the Vietnam War? Under the cover of the Many Flags campaign, the United States war effort in Vietnam was supported by 5 allied countries: Australia, New Zealand, South Korea, Thailand, and the Philippines. Among them, South Korea sent by far the largest contingent. At one point in the later stages of the war, there were more Korean troops in Vietnam than Americans. During the 8 years of their deployment, the Koreans fought bravely and left such a remarkable impression that their enemies feared them and their allies were in awe. As one of America's closest allies in Asia, South Korea was eager to repay the United States for its help during the Korean War. Already in 1954 and again in 1961, South Korea had offered to send troops to Vietnam to help defeat the Communists, but on both occasions the Americans and South Vietnamese refused. A decade later, however, the growing need for foreign participation changed the equation. Negotiations between Washington and Seoul resulted in an agreement. U.S. forces would remain stationed in Korea to deter the North. The U.S. would support the modernization of the South Korean army. And America would finance all expenses of the Korean troops in Vietnam, including transportation, equipment, and allowances. The United States also promised to increase economic aid to South Korea's rising industries. On May 21, 1964, the Korean National Assembly authorized the campaign. Soon after, the first Korean units began arriving in South Vietnam. The initial group was the Military Assistance Team, consisting of a mobile army surgical hospital, a taekwondo team, and an engineer construction group. Focused on reconstruction, medical aid, and counterinsurgency, this group was popularly known as the Dove Unit. The first combat formation was the Capital Division, better known as the Tiger Division. Arriving in September 1965, the Tigers were deployed to the Canaan region, replacing the American 1st Brigade of the 1st Airborne Division. Their task was to protect the vital routes 1 and 19. Almost simultaneously, the Blue Dragon Division, South Korea's 2nd Marine Division, arrived. Initially deployed to Cam Ranh Bay, they later moved to the Da Nang area where they faced the 95th Regiment of the North Vietnamese Army. The largest Korean formation was the 9th Infantry Division, or White Horse Division, which arrived in September 1966. It included an armored company, a reconnaissance company, an engineering battalion, 4 field artillery battalions, and 3 infantry regiments, over 23,800 men. They were assigned to the Ninh Hoa district to control the local population and defend the Ninh Hoa Air Base in Cam Ranh Bay. By the end of the war, South Korea had deployed 2 additional units. A Marine battalion in 1967. And a 12-man C-46 crew in 1969. In total, 47,820 South Korean troops served in Vietnam between 1964 and 1969, all under the command of Major General Chai Myung-shin. Once the 9th Infantry Division arrived, General Chai gathered all forces under a single corps headquarters at Nha Trang. Recruitment for the Vietnam tours was strictly voluntary. Although the Capital Division was technically a reserve division, the number of volunteers far exceeded the required strength. This allowed commanders to carefully select only the best. Fitness, skills, and discipline had to meet the highest standards. The command cadre was equally elite. Graduates of Korea's top military academies were handpicked and guided by battle-hardened senior officers, many of them veterans of the Korean War. American officers had nothing but praise for their Korean allies. In Vietnam, the Koreans operated completely independently, showing great skill in tactics, logistics, and small unit operations. Trained at home to defend against a northern invasion, they surprised even their American partners with their aggressive pursuit of the enemy. Korean troops conducted thorough search and destroy missions, leaving no rock unturned. Once the enemy was located, they would encircle them and slowly close in, leaving almost no room to escape. Discipline was paramount. After a full day of combat, Korean soldiers might stand waist-deep in water through the night to secure their perimeter. Although their kill counts were often lower than American units, the amount of weapons and material they captured was much higher, and their casualty rates were far lower. It was not unusual for Korean units to achieve a kill ratio of more than 20-1 on their missions. Because of their success, American forces often leaned heavily on their Korean allies for the most dangerous operations. The Battle of Tra Binh. One of the most celebrated actions came in February 1967, when the 11th Company of the Blue Dragon Brigade suffered a night attack by two Viet Cong regiments near Tra Binh village in Quang Ngai province. The Korean base, ringed with barbed wire and claymore mines, was attacked from all sides with heavy mortar fire. The Viet Cong charged in waves, but the Marines held their ground, firing every weapon they had, even using mortar shells at point-blank range. Despite the ferocity of the assault, the Koreans fought on. At one point the Viet Cong breached the perimeter and the battle descended into hand-to-hand combat. Company Commander Captain Chong Kyung-jin ordered a tactical pullback to lure the enemy deeper inside. Then two squads sealed the gap and trapped the attackers. With a final charge, Korean Marines drove the enemy back into the jungle. By morning, 254 Viet Cong lay dead. Only 15 Korean soldiers had been killed. For their heroism, the Korean government awarded more decorations for this battle than for any other of the war, and the entire unit was promoted one rank. A darker side. Yet the fierce performance of South Korean troops also left a darker legacy. Korean soldiers sometimes attacked villages suspected of aiding insurgents, showing little mercy. Numerous reports accused Korean units of committing massacres of Vietnamese civilians. Despite these reports, both Korean headquarters and American commanders tolerated the actions at the time.